All right, well, welcome everyone to our Credentialing 101. This is our first time hosting this type of call, and we do have Gail Head here from IFMA National to talk about all the different credentialing options and go over that at a high level. And then we have a great panel here. We have Linda, CFM, Nancy, an FMP, and Deidre, a SFP. So they will be able to answer any questions you have and talk more about their personal experiences with these credentials. I'm Sierra Nepple. I am on the Career Services Committee, and I have my FMP as well, but I'm going to just go ahead and lead us through this call. I will let Gail take us away on the credentialing.
Perfect. Thank you so much. So the power of IFMA credentials. I'm Gail Head. I am the account manager for the chapter. I can provide any support that you may need, any training questions that you may have. I'm here to help you with that. So a quick, what does it take to be successful in facility management? There are some essential skills that you're going to want to have. Determination to make an impact on your organization is huge. Without that, you're probably not going to get very far because you want to be able to provide a positive for your organization. And you can do that by having a solid foundation in the fundamentals of FM. Having a passion for learning and staying up to date on industry trends is also a really great way to be successful. And then when you earn your credential, you'll have that confidence to verify that you've got that expertise. IFMA's body of knowledge is created by 11 competencies. We're going to go through which of these create what program, but I wanted to have you look at the list so that you can see what all is covered and what other facility managers globally have deemed to be critical. And this is what they're doing in their daily responsibilities and activities. This also helps us have one global standard by focusing on kind of a high level overview of these 11 competencies. Here we have just kind of a quick pathfinding route, if you will, or journey. We have a program for pretty much anybody in facilities. Those who are brand new would benefit from essentials. The FMP, SFP, and CFM are our actual credentials where the essentials are not, but we'll get into that in just a second. We do want to let you know that these are ANSI accredited. So that means that for the FMP and the SFP, all the information that you're going to learn about and read in the programs, you will be tested on for your final assessment. And ANSI just confirms that what you were learning does correspond with what you were tested on. And then we're going to get into the CFM in a lot more detail in just a minute. So for the essentials, like I said, this is going to be kind of that foundation of understanding what a facility manager goes through on their day-to-day. It's key concepts, terminology, and then just daily tasks and how a facility manager might come to a resolution for a situation. It does have 10 modules. It is not a credential. You will receive a certificate of verification once you've completed all 10 modules. The natural journey from essentials, if you start there, would be to move into the FMP. The FMP covers 4 critical areas of facility management. Project management as it pertains to facility management. So it's not just project management in general. It is going to be more specified to facility management. You're going to have leadership and strategy, finance and business, and operations and maintenance as well. The FMP is an online self-paced program. We do have an interactive digital flipbook along with a downloadable PDF. Each module is going to have its own final assessment. Once all 4 assessments have been taken, at that point, you are eligible to submit your application and earn that credential. We do say that on average, it could take anywhere from 10 to 12 hours of study time to complete each module. And I say that because some people might not understand the time commitment they're going to need to jump into this credential. So when I say 10 to 12, if you deal with leadership and strategy every day, it might take you 5 hours to get through that because you have that background and experience. But just as a blanket, some people may not comprehend the material as quickly, or maybe it's concepts that, you know what, I don't know how that applies to my daily. So maybe I need to reach out to somebody and see maybe their real world experience can help me understand that concept. So that's why we say it could take on average 10 to 12 hours per module. We do have, if I'm going too fast, please let me know. We do have learning models available to earn your FMP. Self-study, because that is how this program is intended to be. But we do have classroom and virtual FMP options available. Depending on your chapter and getting a classroom setting set up, that could definitely be an option now that we're returning back to in-person events. That is definitely a potential that could be on the horizon. We also have the virtual FMP. I know headquarters does that on a monthly basis. And how we break it down is it's a live 90-minute class that if a qualified instructor will host. And if say you start with project management, there's 5 chapters in that module. So you'll have 5 weeks of coverage to complete that. I know myself, I am busy and sometimes time gets away from me. So some people use the virtual FMP model as a way to stay accountable. If you realize, you know what, I'm just not setting that time aside for myself, but this is something that I want to do, sign up for a class. You're pretty much guaranteed to get through the course material in 5 weeks. But that onus is going to be on you to stay on top of reading your materials. And it also will be to take that final assessment at the end. But I wanted to let you know that there are different options available if you feel that maybe you need that extra push to get through that FMP material. So the next progression on our journey for education is going to be the SFP, or the Sustainability Facility Professional. So this is going to be a credential that is very similar set up to the FMP. So you'll have 3 focus areas of content to get through. And then once all 3 final assessments have been taken, you'll then be eligible to apply for your credential. So it's very similar to online self-paced. There's an interactive digital flipbook, and there's also a downloadable PDF. So with the SFP, it helps you understand sustainable practices and really focus on the triple bottom line. So when you're looking at how do you manage a facility sustainably, this is going to teach you how to think, not what to think. So this way you are going to be kind of that expert when it comes to sustainable practices for your company. And then that's going to lead us to basically our Cadillac of credentials. So the CFM, or Certified Facility Manager certification, is going to be a little bit different from the others, where this is going to be experience-based. So there are some eligibility requirements that must be met in order to sit for this exam. There are no study requirements that you have to go through in order to sit for this exam. So when you submit your application, you will have 90 days from approval to get scheduled at your proctored testing site. The questions are based on different scenarios that could happen in a facility manager's day-to-day. There are 180 questions to get through. It is timed and it is a proctored exam. We do have optional preparation materials available, and we're going to get into that in just a second. With this certification, you will be required to show CEs every 3 years to recertify your certification. So that is another difference from the FMP and the SFP, where those are lifelong. This is a certification that has to be recertified. For those who maybe think this is the route they want to take, but they're unsure, they're not sure if they're going to meet eligibility requirements to sit for the exam, you can send me an email. Once you have uploaded your resume or CV, I can have our credentials team review your application, and then they'll reach out to you personally to tell you you are qualified, you're free to move forward. That way you're not stuck to that 90-day window of getting your test scheduled. So some of the prep tools that we have are going to be workshops and practice exams. So these two resources are basically there to help you cover the methodology of how the questions are written. Both of these are not going to cover content, but they're just going to cover how the questions are written and help prepare you to actually take the test. So in the prep workshop, this is actually a virtual workshop with an IFMA qualified instructor. So you'll have two-hour sessions that will go over tips and tricks from the instructor. They're going to cover basically how many questions from each of the 11 competencies are on the exam. One question might have all four answers could be correct. They're going to help you kind of decipher which ones would be the best answers. And I know some of our panelists will be able to help expound on that in just a few moments. The practice exam is an opportunity that you get that is 90 questions long, and it's self-paced. So that means that you're going online when you have that time to sit and run through the questions. It's not going to cover content. Again, it's not going to let you know if you passed or failed. It's just there to let you practice seeing questions, answering questions, and just seeing how that looks online. They are timed as well, and there's only 90 questions. So again, that just helps you understand time crunch wise what that could potentially look like. So another listing of the 11 competencies, we do have content course material available if you need to brush up on any of those. You'll see the first four do create the FMP, but they are included in the 11 competencies. Each one of these is self-paced, again, digital books, downloadable PDFs, and they each have a final assessment when they're taken individually. They do offer a digital badge upon completion. This can be done two ways. If you are looking to prepare for the CFM exam, these are a great way to kind of fill that gap in knowledge. Maybe you don't work with real estate every day and you feel like, you know what, I'm not really confident in that module. Maybe I should take some coursework just to make sure I can fill that gap. If you're already a CFM and you're looking for CEs, this is a way that you can fill that gap. If you're, again, you don't deal with communications every day, but I need to have a couple more hours for my CEs, you can take one of these courses and that will help fill that need as well. Once you've earned your credential, whether it's the FMP, SFP, or CFM, they are all web-enabled, shareable, and verifiable. So once you have earned your credential, you'll be able to post this everywhere, and I recommend posting it everywhere because you've gone through all the hard work to get it. You'll be listed in our camp registry, and you can put this on your email signature line, post it in social media, and you will receive one of these digital badges. When you click on it, the verifiable part of it will show you exactly what you have gone through. So if it's the FMP, those 4 modules will be listed. Because this is the CFM, it shows all 11. And then the SFP will break down the 3 focus areas as well. So I think this is like one of my little favorite pieces of, you get, you know, a lot of people have alphabet soup behind their name. When you're looking on LinkedIn, it can be a little intimidating. This is just a little extra that you get to show off what you've done. And then that concludes the portion from me. So I can stop sharing and then let us be able to answer questions. And then we can now actually probably talk to the panel.
Yeah, before we open it up for the panel, if anybody has any questions for Gail about more of the technical details of getting these or anything she went over in that PowerPoint, you know, feel free to come off mute or put a question in the chat and I will read that off to her. Just a couple things to mention before we go ahead and open things up to the panel where they'll talk more about their real world experiences and how this has benefited them. But if you are interested in getting any of these certifications, we do have a mentoring program that we offer through our career services in the Chicago IFMA chapter. And that's a really great program that we have, seasoned professionals with years and years of experience who we can match you up with. And we usually try to match, if you're interested in the FMP, we'll match you up with somebody who has it, and they can kind of give you that more informal, like answer any questions you have. And that's something that can be a continuous relationship over, as long as you and your mentor would agree for that. So if anyone is interested in that, that is on our website under the career services tab, and it's our mentorship program. And then if we have enough interest, something we've been working on is possibly offering in-person or virtual credentialing courses through our chapter. I know a lot of the people on our panel have taken in-person courses. Those are really valuable. Gail mentioned, they'll walk you through how to answer questions. As I mentioned, I have my FMP and I read the books, and I was not prepared for the questions on the exam, because it is, which is the best answer? They're all right, but you're not quite sure which one is the best. So that's really a great option for us. If anyone's interested in that, we'll have more information to come on that. So at this time, I will go ahead and let the panel introduce themselves. Like I said, if anybody has questions at this point, feel free to type them in the chat.
Thanks,
Linda, we
Sarah.
can start with you. Yeah.
Thanks. Hi, I'm Linda Bezzetny. I have my CFM. I'm the global head of facilities at RJ O'Brien. It's a futures brokerage trading company. And having my CFM has really helped a lot, especially in getting my last 3 jobs, which I'm happy to talk about more in the Q&A.
Hi, I'm Nancy Miller. I am the AVP of Facilities for Golub Capital, which is a middle market financial firm here in downtown Chicago. And I got my FMP many years ago, shortly after I joined IFMA, realized what a valuable thing that would be to have, and it really has helped me throughout my career all these years. I did do it in person, which I found the best option for me to be around other people doing that same thing. But again, it's been great. So happy to give any other information if people have questions.
Hello, my name is Deirdre Tate. I'm the Assistant Facilities Manager for CBRE at Northern Trust in downtown Chicago. I actually have my FMP and SFP, but for the purpose of the panel today, I'll be focusing on the SFP. And I think that the credential has definitely helped me advance in my career. I think it's actually given me opportunities that I probably wouldn't have had I not had these credentials. So looking forward to talking with all of you today.
Yeah, great. Thank you, guys. Well, we can go back in that circle. I know you guys kind of all touched on it a little bit, but why did you originally seek out your credential, and why'd you go for that specific one, and how has it really helped you in your career? If you have a specific example, that would be great.
Sure. I was a facility manager at the time, and my chief operating officer really insisted that I get my CFM because the next level for me was a director. So that was very important to him, which made it very important to me. I did a combination, as Nancy said too, I had been out of school for a long time, and going back with having a family at home was challenging, but I did at the time they had in-person 8 hours that you did on a Friday and a Saturday. So you gave up a little time, one day of work, one day on the weekend. And I met other facility managers in the same boat as me, which really helped me to form study groups. We did them virtually and in person. And it has really helped my career immensely, because the last few jobs, as I mentioned, that I went for, I actually got, and I felt like I had that edge over other facility managers because I have this certification. Also, it helped me to become more of a leader in IFMA. I was the I am the past president, but, going up the food chain on the IFMA board of directors, having my CFM, I think it's very well respected. I've had a lot of opportunities to use that. It's nice. I have it on my business card. I have it in my email closing, and it's, recognized worldly. So it's very, very helpful. And I just can't tell you how much it has helped my career and the knowledge, because, being out of school for such a long time, I never worked with real estate or finance. And now I've gone on to do all the global real estate, where I do all the leases with a real estate attorney and a project manager. I knew nothing about real estate, and I hardly did budgets or finance. So I took those 2 courses, and I also took the summary class at the time, just to refresh my memory on everything. But having those additional training really, really helped me. So if I can give any advice to anyone, it would be, if the FMP, like it said in the presentation, if you maybe have 3 years experience or are more of a newcomer, you probably want to focus on the FMP in those 4 categories. And when I did it years ago, there was 9 competencies. Now there's 11 for someone maybe at a manager level or wishing to go higher. But I also wanted to say, in addition to helping my career, I personally feel like I have a seat at the table with the CIO and the COO, who I report directly to now, where before that, I didn't feel like I'd be running projects as the project manager and then go on to a global basis. So I just can't stress enough how much any of these certifications will help.
I would agree with everything that Linda said as far as the reasons to get the credential through IFMA, just because it sounds silly, but having those initials after your name really does go a long way when you're in competition with other, potential candidates for a role, as well as just gaining that respect from your peers as well. So for me, again, at the time I got it, I was not as experienced, and I felt like I could use the FMP as my stepping stone. If I chose to go on to the CFM, it kind of made sense to start small to go big. But what was taught in the FMP class really was a very well-rounded education in, all things facilities. And so as a newbie kind of learning it, it really helped me get that solid base. And working in an environment strictly that is more leased space in a high-rise building, I feel like I now can, have those conversations with the property management, with the engineers, with anyone I'm dealing with, my vendors, to at least seem knowledgeable as to when they're saying you need to do X, Y, and Z, that I know what that is. So again, for my specific role, that made sense to get the FMP with that good solid base. But it clearly has helped me in my career, get me jobs, get me opportunities. And to Linda's point, kind of prove to everyone that, you can back up what you're saying. So just valuable all the way around, whether, whichever credential someone wants to go for, it's going to be helpful to you. It does not have to, you don't have to start at the top. You could start at the bottom and work your way up.
Ditto. Everything the lady said. For me with the SFP, I had just finished up the FMP. And I was still learning, what it took to even be an FM. Like, I hadn't had any experiences in the FM, but I knew it's what I wanted to do. And so that's when I joined IFMA, got my FMP. With the SFP, our chapter has a scholarship program. And for me, I was like, okay, free money and a way to just get as much knowledge as possible, so people knew that I was serious about wanting to really be in this field and learn what it takes to be in this field, especially as a woman and a woman of color, because I don't see a lot of people that always look like me in this field. So I wanted recruiters and companies to know that I was serious. So I applied for the scholarship. Just because it was a resource. So I figured, why not take advantage of that resource that's out there? And so luckily I was the recipient of that scholarship and utilized that to do the in-person class for SFP. And it was tremendously enlightening just being there. Like I'm more of a in-person type of learner. So for me, it made sense to do it in person. That way I could interact with the instructors as well as other students there from like different backgrounds of FM, and we could like share tips and tricks of things that work in our respective jobs. Um, so yeah, ditto everything to what the lady said. I think the job that I'm currently in now, one of the main things that my the global alliance director who interviewed me, he was impressed just because I even knew what IFMA was and that I had the certifications. And to me, I think that gave me a bump over the other candidates that he was considering. And he talks about it all the time. He mentions it all the time to people on our account about IFMA and the credentials and how they're useful and how he's a big proponent of it and how they'll pay for you to get the certifications because he completely believes in what they stand for and how strong they make you as an FM.
It's funny you say that, Deidre, because my company was almost the opposite, where coming on board, I kind of had to introduce them to the world of IFMA. Our facility department was very tiny at the time I joined. I've been here 8 years now, and my boss really didn't have a lot of knowledge of IFMA. But as I started talking about it and she, learned a little bit more about it, she ended up getting everybody from our company within our department membership and encouraging them to go to events. We've been to World Workplace together as a team. So really bringing that knowledge that, hey, look, there really is an organization that helps support facility managers to do their job better. She was all about that, not having really known and had the experience because it had been such a tiny department before. So I felt like I really brought something to the organization by bringing my knowledge of IFMA to the table.
Yeah, just to add on to that as well, I have my FMP, and at the time, I don't know if they still have it, Gail might know this, but they had a letter on the website on how to get your employer to help pay for your certification. So I actually used that. I sent it to my boss. I was at JLL at the time, so they were familiar with IFMA, and they were happy to have me pursue that early on in my career. And then now as a manager at I work directly for a company, so none of it's outsourced and there's not that familiarity with IFMA, but I'm bringing IFMA into my role as a manager and helping my staff. We're starting with the essentials of FM, but kind of just getting them through that, and then hopefully be able to have our company pay for their certifications. I know there was a question here on what the costs associated with each credential was, but I think another good thing to talk about is how to convince your employer, or even, Deidre, you mentioned the scholarship program. What are our options for paying for these fees?
So we do have pricing available. You can email me and I'll put my email in the chat and we can go from there. We do have group pricing available and we do have chapter pricing available. So that's going to be dependent on, and I'll get with David to see what that looks like for the near future. We can see how many people, what programs, and just kind of start there and then see what best pricing we can offer. And then I personally lucked into the FM role, as most people do, not even realizing that this could be a career. Started as the office manager, and next thing I know, I'm looking at space, trying to figure out how do we build over here. And it's like, oh my gosh, this is a lot to do. And then maintaining staff, making sure the kitchen is staffed with enough coffee. You're thinking, oh my gosh, it's just every day. Oh my gosh, the toilet's leaking. So now I have to find a plumber. So that's how I lucked into an FM role. And then when I switched from that role to this role, again, just totally shocked that this is a career and there's credentials for it. So that's how I'm on my path to earning my FMP. I have one more final assessment before I can say that, yes, I have those 3 letters behind my name. But yes, it is very empowering to know that this is out here for you to better yourself in your career. We do have a Convince Your Boss flyer, and we update that periodically because things change and you might need something new to convince your boss with. So we can put a presentation together, very similar to what we did this morning, geared either towards one program, if that's the program that you're looking for, or we can talk about it in a general sense. Whatever makes sense for you, your training, your company, whatever. Let's see. David, what comes first? Usually the job, so that you kind of have that on the job experience to have the material to apply to. Unless you're in an adjacent role like HR and you just work with facility managers and maybe aren't going to take the role that Nancy took, where she actually delved into facilities. The Essentials is a great starting point for that, to kind of build that skill set and have an understanding or a foundation of, okay, now I understand what facility management is. This is what I want to do. Now let me move on to the FMP, SFP, or CFM. So there's no order that you have to take them. Linda jumped right in both feet, was very successful, and look at her career now. So I'll lead that into the question that Christian asked for Linda.
Oh, what was the question, please? I didn't read the chat.
How is the recertification for the CFM? How much prep did you feel you needed for it?
Sure. So actually, it's very easy. Each thing that you do has points, and correct me if I'm wrong, Gail, but I think it's 20 points a year. So 60 points for every 3 years. You get points for being active in the membership. You get points. You do have to do some training. So either go to World Workplace or Facility Fusion. So go to one conference a year, and really just being active in the chapter. So that could be, volunteering on a committee. It doesn't mean you have to be on the board of directors. So it's not hard to do. It's pretty much what you're doing anyway. I also want to toss it back to Deidre, because I wanted her to finish answering the question about, or explaining more about how you received the scholarship.
Sure. I remember when the post came out, I think it was email from our chapter explaining how that there were scholarships for both the FMP and the SFP. And at the time, I had just finished up the FMP, and I was just like, I just want knowledge, and I want as much knowledge and experience that I can obtain. And so I decided to just apply for it and see, all they can say is no. I didn't know what the competition would be like. But I'm also in a dynamic chapter in Chicago where I feel like everyone is super smart and has all their certifications anyway. So I thought maybe I had a good chance, because we have so many people in our chapter that already have so many other certifications. So I just gave it a shot. So I filled out the application and talked about why I wanted it, how I wanted more experience, how I wanted to stand out, how I wanted to let employers know that I was serious about this field. And I was a recipient. And so with the scholarship process, it is like you still have to pay for it out of pocket yourself. However, once you complete the courses and pass and obtain the certification, you get reimbursed for the courses. And so, which makes sense, to make sure that, there's a return on the investment for the chapter as well. So it was something that I had already saved up for, because I was going to self-fund it myself had I not obtained a scholarship. The same way I did with FMP, I self-funded that, but I was like, okay, I'm serious. So I had money aside just in case I didn't get it. I was still going to get the certification regardless. But when I got the scholarship, that just kind of motivated me to make sure that I really paid attention to all of the things that we were learning in class, study, follow up, talk to my other classmates if I had troubles. And once I had got my certification, I reached back out to the chapter, let them know, showed them my certification and all of that. And then I got reimbursed for the education. So I would say if your chapter does have a scholarship program, definitely look into it and apply. Because you never know, especially during the year that you apply, like it may not be as competitive as other years. And you may be the person that gets that. And to have a chapter that can give you one of like that has scholarships for one of each is really, really cool. So I'm a big proponent of the scholarship program because it helped me obtain my certification for SFP.
Great, thank you. And I know for those of you that, have been thinking about seeing if your employer would pay for it, it never hurts to ask. All they can do is say no. And that letter sounds like it's still available on the website, give you some talking points, something to go off of. So that's great. Thank you guys. We do have another question in the chat from Brett, who is going to take the CFM workshop at World Workplace this fall. And if it goes according to plan, thinks he'll feel prepared to sit for the exam. So what should he do soon after, possibly while in Nashville still for World Workplace? Any recommendations as he moves towards earning the CFM over these next few months? Go ahead, Linda.
Yes, Brett, that's great. And I will see you in Nashville. This is what I recommend. I know I'm older than you, and I know we've chatted a little bit about the CFM before, but this is what I would recommend. No matter where someone is, if they're in another state, I would get as many email contacts as you can of people sitting for that review class, because you can do study groups virtually. That's what I did. And I'm still friends with these people to this day. And then when someone takes the test before you, even though the questions switch up all the time, they're never going to be the same. It's just, there might have been one question that stumped someone, and you can talk about, gee, how did you answer that, and work through it. I would recommend doing the review class, taking those materials, and seriously, I know you have a family and you're working full time, but I would seriously carve out some time, whether it's a lunch hour with your door closed, to really read those materials, review, take that practice exam that they were talking about. And I wouldn't rush to take it. It's like a fine line. Why it's fresh in your mind, you want to take it, and you have to schedule it. And at these sites where you go, there might not be an availability until 5 weeks out, kind of thing. I really recommend preparing more than less. Not everyone passes it the first time, and that doesn't mean you're a failure. I did not pass it the first time, and I don't think I've ever really shared that with anyone, because you don't want to feel incompetent, but a lot of that stuff was very high level that I didn't deal with. Like Nancy said, when we were chatting before the call, you might not know how to fix an escalator or a boiler because you have building management to do that. But that doesn't mean that those questions aren't going to be on there. Or what about, again, I don't have to take care of grounds outside, but the question they always say is, what would IFMA do? And they will teach you that. Like, maybe not what you would do, but what would IFMA do? And this one question sticks in my mind that everybody had a different answer for, which is a silly question in my mind as to why everyone had a different question. The question was, the president of the company's executive chair broke. What do you do? What are the most correct 3 answers out of these 5? So it's like, well, to me, I would drop everything and come running. That to me is the first thing, which was true. But some of the other questions were like, some of the other options were, would you call your furniture vendor and rent a chair that you're going to get next week? Well, no, what's he going to do? Stand for the week? I mean, or, would you give him your chair? But the constant methodology was, what would IFMA do? So again, not necessarily what you would do, and they will drill that into you. But Brett, get as many contacts, form a study group, read the material. It's better to be over prepared, because again, there's going to be questions on there like, if you don't do build outs, there's going to be a blueprint. They're going to say, what is this symbol? And might be a triangle with a half shaded in. So does that mean electric or power? Like, what's the answer? And data or power. And it's really worth taking your time to get it right on the first time.
And Linda, you bring up a good point. What on the test, what they're always looking for, because this was the same with the FMP, there are several answers that seem to be the right ones. And so you're sitting there going, well, they're all right, but IFMA wants you to focus on what would IFMA do? What would you do,
In a perfect
as
world, in a perfect
IFMA,
scenario.
not, you could put yourself in that situation where like, oh, I've had that happen. Somebody had a chair break and here's what I did. But it's no, take a step back. So Brett, you really do have to look at it as from what the IFMA answer should be, which may not be what you would have thought was the right answer, which we would argue about it in our class all the time when we would do like, little trial tests together, and we would be yelling at the instructor going, that's not right, that's really not what we should do. And he would always just say, but that's what IFMA would do. So
Right,
you might
Nancy,
get a little frustrated by it, but it
was
is the way it is.
what is the most correct answer? Like you
Yeah.
said, it could all be mostly correct and nobody would get in trouble if you,
Did this or that or
gave
that.
him a different borrowed chair, but when you got to give it to him immediately, he's not going to stand on a call or what have you. So it's really worth to take your time and be over prepared than under prepared.
Yeah. Has it already been an hour? Are we at
Oh
time?
my gosh.
Oh, but this goes till 1. We just
No,
started
it's
15 minutes
12:45,
early.
I think.
Oh, is
I
it?
think it's supposed to go till 12:45, yeah.
Yeah, sorry, I'm
would
in
wrap it up.
Michigan, so the time zones have me mixed up, but
It is, we're a minute away.
yeah, so at that, I know I have more I wanted to talk about, but maybe we can host another call in the future and get into this more. Thank you guys so much for your time. Any closing thoughts as we wrap this up?
Brett, if you want to email me, I can get your application submitted without payment to see if you're going to qualify. And that would give you a little bit more time so that you're not stuck to that 90-day window once you submit your application, so that you've got time to go to the CFM workshop in the fall. And that way, that would be one step less that you have to do, so that when you're ready to go, your application will kind of be put in the forefront because it's already basically been approved. You don't have to wait that 3 to 5 week time period for them to go through the full approval process.
Okay, thank you. I will do that.
I think Tasha had a question.
Yep, I think she clapped.
Oh. She raised her hand.
Okay, well, thank you again, everyone. We are recording this, so that recording will be coming out soon. If you missed any part of it or want a refresher, we'll make sure that Gail's contact information is in there. If the panelists don't mind me sharing your contact information as well for people to reach out to you, that would be awesome. Thank you. And again, we have that mentoring program if you do want somebody to kind of hold your hand through this whole process or whatever kind of mentoring you're interested in. So check that out. At that, thank you everyone so much for your time today, and have a good weekend.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you
Thank
again.
you, everybody.
No,
Thank you,
same.
Sierra. Great job.